Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. As always, today we're going to be talking about your physical health and some changes you can make to lead a longer, better life and stay out of the hospital and off of medication. Before we get into it all, I'm going to ask you to like this video and click subscribe so that you get more videos like this in the future. I've got at least one coming every day for a very long time, so please join me for this great ride if you haven't already. All right, diving in. So let's talk a little bit about how life gets in the way of your best intentions toward nutrition and healthy living. Now, you see this all the time with people, right? They'll get into a new situation in life, like they're having a new baby, for example, or they get a promotion at work, or perhaps they take on a big project at work that's really going to have them working late hours and have a very sporadic kind of schedule for the foreseeable future. And so what usually happens is either people think unrealistically that they're going to be able to maintain the same level of fitness and connectivity to their wellness every day, which is just not realistic usually. Or they think that they just need to throw out and completely deprioritize anything having to do with their longevity and their health and their wellness. So, certainly, there's a few factors to keep in mind. And I want to say that as a health coach and life coach, one of the best things you can do is have a health coach or life coach of your own so that you have someone who's really guiding you and who can help you to prioritize and be realistic about where your time is going. But let's go ahead and get into the mechanics of how you're going to want to level everything out in your life and be able to be there for those who are counting on you and still, of course, maintain your income and yet still not let your body go to pot. Because there's nothing harder than taking years away from health and wellness, which we've seen a lot these past few years with the COVID pandemic. A lot of people got so out of shape over those couple of years that then trying to get back was just seemingly insurmountable. And so this is where we want to be careful that we don't get too far gone. So let me talk about a few particular examples. Keep in mind, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients who've been in these positions over the years, and I've kind of seen it all at this point. So I'm coming to you with that perspective. All right, so first, if you are young, if you are in like your late teens or 20s, and you're dealing, or even late into your 20s, and you're dealing with the usual obstacles, which are college related, new job related, or potentially new baby related. Those three things, when you're that young, I think it's realistic and statistically realistic to know that if you just drift away from strength training for a bit and you cut down to 1 day a week of just 20 minutes of strength training, when you're that young, that's usually fairly feasible. You're not likely to lose very significant muscle mass as long as those 20 or 30 or so minutes per week are really used wisely. So I don't think this is such a harmful thing to minimize some of your strength training while you're young, while you're roughly in your 20s or maybe early 30s. When you get older, though, and usually when you're a little bit older, you're starting to see different problems, right? You're out of school, you're usually pretty well immersed into your career at that point. And generally, if you're having babies, that's not going to be going on for too much longer, usually. So at this point, when you get into your mid 30s or so, it's important to realize that you're not going to hold on to muscle mass as readily and be as lucky to do that as you were 10 or 15 years ago. And so now that 1 day of 20 or 30 minutes becomes more like 2 days of at least 30 minutes. And this is not just my opinion and from what I've seen, this is really statistical understanding of what happens with muscle mass as we get a little bit older. I've often said that age doesn't take away your muscle mass, and that's true, but you can get away with cheapening your exercise science as it appeals to muscle mass more so at a younger age in your late teens all the way through your 20s than you can once you get over about 30 or 35 or so. You don't have the same luck in terms of hormone secretion, and those days off will cost you more muscle in most cases. So again, if you're over about 30, 35, and especially by age 40, you're definitely going to need at least 2 days a week of strength training pretty much no matter what. It doesn't have to be long. You certainly don't need a gym. You can do it from home, but you're going to want to incorporate that either before you go to work or begin your day, or at some point in the middle, perhaps at lunchtime or even in the evening. Now, speaking of the evening, I don't suggest leaving it till the evening unless you're pretty certain that's going to work for you. I'd say at least 90 to 95% of the time, when people say, oh, I'm going to exercise in the evening, or I'm going to get all my meals planned out in the evening for the next day. Well, what happens is the evening gets more discombobulated. There's generally more activity going on for most people. Again, guys, keep in mind, I'm being general here. But there's so much going on that the evening can get more chaotic. You've got rush hour, you've got new surprises coming in from the family or new needs coming up. And so maybe one of your kids needs more help with their homework than you anticipated. So things tend to come up more in the evening than in the early morning, which is of course why so many people like to exercise and get their day started really early. With that said, that may not work for you either. If you're someone who has a long commute or you have a lot of things to do prior to getting your day started for work or for family, then that might not be feasible either. So think a lot about what's going to work for you. But of course, evenings in general historically seem to be a little bit more troublesome. Let's talk now about sleep. Now, of course, if you are having a new baby, sleep is probably going to be out the window no matter what you try to do. But we need to make sleep a top priority. If I really had to choose what the most important component is to your health as it regards to your lifestyle, sleep is actually more important, I would say, than exercise science or nutrition. Sleep and really hydration are pretty much at the top of the list. So making sure that you're getting enough sleep is critical no matter what. Now, the closer you can get to getting the same bedtime and same wake time, even during stressful periods of your life, that the closer you get to that, the better it's going to be for you. I'm telling you, the same bedtime, same wake time really helps your body lock into circadian rhythms. It does a lot for your brain chemistry and to understand that, oh, it's time to start to change our chemistry for slumber. And then, hey, it's time to change our chemistry again to wake up and begin the day. So, if there's one thing you can really prioritize that's of big importance, even if you have to really cut down on your exercise and perhaps even some of your nutrition, try to get the same bedtime, wake time every day. I know that's really tough when you're traveling, especially if you're changing time zones frequently, because, let's say your former 10 o'clock bedtime, now you're traveling somewhere new, and now that 10 o'clock becomes 12 o'clock. Well, that's really difficult to do. However, I would say that if you really care about your health, do whatever you can do to make that work, to not let your body drift too far out of its circadian rhythms, not too far out of the routine that you've set up for it. The less of a sleep routine you have, the more up and down your hormones are going to be, which is going to be worse for your weight management, right? As your hormones flux and sleep is poor, your stress levels are going to be worse, and you're less likely to hold on to muscle and you're less likely to keep off new body fat. So sleep is very critical. I would prioritize that at just about the top of your list. Now, that said, hydration is also going to be a really top priority. And hydration, I think, is going to be the easiest to manage. It doesn't matter what time zones you're traveling through. You can be on a plane or in a car, you can always be drinking water. And so, hydration is probably going to be the one that gives you the most bang for your buck. Think about what a shame it would be if you were struggling to get in your workouts during these months of having a more hectic schedule, and maybe you've got a new baby and you're dealing with all these things, you're managing your life in a way that you get your workouts in, you're struggling to plan your meals effectively, but in the midst of all of it you forget about your hydration, when hydration is at least as valuable if not more than those two things. So that's really critical. Hydration has so much to do with how well you age, how you stay out of the hospital, and how you hopefully stay off of medications as well. So you want to make sure that you're being well hydrated. I would set reminders. I do this with a lot of my clients. I have them set reminders in their phones so that every few hours they get a little alarm that just says drink water. That's one way to go. There's also plenty of apps that'll do something very similar for you. And there's even, there's even thermoses and things like that that will actually remind you when your water is getting too low to refill it. So that's a little bit helpful as well. So use whatever strategy you need to do, but commit to it right away, because if there's one thing you can do with ease and it's not very time consuming during a hectic schedule and periods of a lot of disruption to your time management, that hydration would be a very, very big part of all of that. And it'll keep you a lot more energized while you're dealing with all these new stressors. By the way, before we finish up, if you're finding this video helpful, please make sure you like the video and subscribe so you get more videos like this and more people see this one as well. All right, let's move on to our final topic regarding lifestyle and health during periods of high stress. And that is caffeine intake. Now, this is the time, I've seen this in so many clients, I can't even tell you. This becomes the time when they're having a new baby or stressors going on at work, or perhaps they're caring for a sick family member. This is where we start to load up with excess caffeine, which is honestly, there's a lot of good to that. The caffeine will keep your brain working better. It'll keep you more focused, but you don't want to overdo the caffeine. And of even bigger concern, you don't want to be consuming caffeine within about 6 or 7 hours of bedtime. Caffeine can sit in your system for 12 hours or more. And so to play it conservatively, if you do have a very busy day and you really need the caffeine even midday, try to be done once you're within about 6 or 7 hours of bedtime. That seems to be where it can be really disruptive, is when, for example, if you're going to bed at say 10 p.m. and you're still having coffee or any kind of caffeinated beverage at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And I know that's a time when a lot of people need it to pick us up, but the problem becomes, even though you can still fall asleep at 10, you might be thinking, hey, Val, the caffeine doesn't keep me from falling asleep. I realize you'll still fall asleep, but the concern that I have for people is that when you do fall asleep, your sleep is less restorative and less productive, all because you still got that caffeine swimming around in your body. So it is a really good thing, as best you can, to try to, at the very least, minimize caffeine in that 6 or 7 hour period prior to bedtime. Even better if you don't drink any caffeine about 11 or 12 hours prior. That is even better, so that you're more likely to get more productive sleep. So if you'd like to get my help, you've got lots of ways to do that. We've got in the description, not only is my phone number there where you can reach out to me and we can chat privately for a little bit about your unique situation, but you can also use some of the free tools that I have in the description as well. You can grab my 10-question quiz that asks you about your weight loss methods and what you're trying to do to lose weight. This quiz will tell me a lot about, and it'll tell you a lot about where you're going right and where you're going wrong. I can also get in touch with you, and again, we can chat for a few minutes about your answers and about how we can start to shape things a little bit better for you. I've also got plenty of other videos in the description and here on the channel that can help you in all kinds of ways to achieve better longevity and to stay out of the hospital and off of medication as you're getting older, and to keep a lean, healthy, strong physique throughout your life. I'm looking forward to your health and your wellness success.